Chesem and Beis. Start from the two dots. Yesterday we left off, we skipped a few lines, then I went back. Okay? We're holding Tanu Rabbanan. Just like an introduction, you know, the Gemara says in Sanhedrin, which we studied, we have a principle: Ein Adam Meis Matzah Rosha. Person is not permitted, is not believed to incriminate himself. Now, why is he believed to incriminate himself? So Rashi says in a number of locations, because Adam Korvetz Alatzmo. The only person who can incriminate anyone, you have to be an aid, you have to be a witness. So since Adam Korvetz Alatzmo, nobody's closer to himself than himself. Korv is postledus. A relative is not qualified to testify. So if a person comes to Bezdin with another witness, and they say, Ploni Ravani Luritzoni, I committed an act of sodomy and I consented to it with so-and-so. And two people come to court. This person who has participated in it willingly and another witness. And they want to convict the sodomizer, put him to death. So the Gemara says, if you say Palgin Dibura, if you split the testimony, you're able to actually convict the sodomizer. Why? Since we have a principle of Ein Adam Meis Matzah Rosha, when the court hears the word Liritzoni, they can't accept it because he's testifying himself, he's incriminating himself. He said he willingly participated in the act of sodomy. So we can't believe that. So that testimony falls on deaf ears. So what did they hear? Really, when you say a person committed sodomy, that testimony stands independent of anything else. The Ritzoni, whether the person who you sodomize consent didn't, that's irrelevant in terms of the liability for the sodomizer, correct? He committed sodomy. You give me an additional piece of information. What's the additional piece of information? That the participant, he consented. So that we can't accept because Adam Korvetz Alatzmo, so we only accept the first part of the testimony. Ploni Rava, so-and-so committed the act of sodomy. That's called Palgin Dibura. We split the testimony. The part of testimony which can be accepted is accepted. The second half cannot be accepted because the person is not believed regarding incriminating himself. Right? That's the word we have in Sanhedrin. But the term is Palgin Dibura, means we split the statement. Okay? We'll discuss it here, but it's different. It's not the same. Although with the same terminology is used, but it's a whole different concept over here.
Just on that, Sanhedrin, when this person is found guilty based on this splitting, does the court have to identify the other perpetrator?
No, definitely not.
It says there was a person, we don't know who it was, but we know that you, guilty person, committed sodomy.
That's all they have to know. Let's say two witnesses say, Ploni Rava, so-and-so committed sodomy. We have no idea whether the person who participated was agreeable, not agreeable, whether it was forced, and we don't even know if he was, who he was, what he was.
I don't know who it was.
We don't even know if he was a Jew. It's irrelevant. Even if he's a Gentile, it's irrelevant.
So that's how we see it.
Correct. So if that's sufficient to put the man to death, he committed an act which is punishable by death. So the verdict is death penalty. Oh. What? Of course they have to. No, he did the same act of sodomy. It's the same act of sodomy. It's irrelevant who was sodomized.
Right, but it has to be that same act.
Same act. Of course it's understood. Okay? Now, Eved Shevi Gito, a slave, a Canaanite slave, brings a document, which the document is a get shikhr. It's a writ of emancipation. The Kosovo, and in this writ, in this document, it's written, you yourself and all my assets are acquired by you, are transferred to you. That means you exist as a free man, atzmacha, and in addition, all my assets are yours. So what are the two statements here? You're free, and as a free man, you're able to acquire all my assets. That's what it says in the document, okay? So what's the halacha? And he himself, so we said, a document to be viable, it needs kiyum. It needs certification. It has to be substantiated by two witnesses. Now, a get shechur we treat like a get isha. If it comes from overseas, the shliach hasib von echtam, which is a leniency, because it's only an eid echod. Normally, you have to have two witnesses to substantiate a document. Correct? So he says, atzmo kona the chosm lokona. He acquires himself because the document is seen as a viable document when he testifies to the validity of the document by saying before nechtam. But regarding the monetary aspect of it, he's not believed, because for that to give it any value, any viability, you have to have two witnesses. So regarding the monetary part of it, not. They're on the star. We're going to discuss it in a moment. Same witnesses testifying about A and B.
Why did the leniency?
Because we equate a shtar shichra to a get. Because all the laws are so similar. Correct. Now, midoraisa, you need nothing, even for monetary.
He requires midoraisa.
Midoraisa requires. Chazal say. Correct. It's not even hefker. We're holding you in abeyance. We're holding you away from it.
They don't authorize.
We don't allow you to collect. That's it. Hefker as nefkers, we're condemning it. It's not no longer yours. It is yours, but we're not allowing you to collect. We're tying your hands. It's like we discussed. Rosh Hashanah falls out on Shabbos. You may have an obligation to blow shofar. It's not that you uprooted the mitzvah, but we don't allow you to blow shofar. Okay? Now, there's an interesting case.
But essentially, I just want to make sure of the technicality. I understand that the death didn't prevent this former slave from taking possession, but how does it stay in the hands of the other party? Midoraisa, the other party has relinquished, and it works.
I mean, do we allow the original owner to, let's say, to benefit or to transact those assets as if they're his?
It's saying that it doesn't, only one half works. It's saying that the original owner has relinquished ownership of the person. That
Correct.
works. But he still owns his goods. But Midoraisa, he's relinquished.
So that we may have to say hefker bez nefker. On that we may have to say hefker bez nefker. It's not simple.
And because it's in his possession still, it reverts back to him. His property requires it for him. His
Correct.
warehouse.
Correct. Now, I'll give you an equivalent case. We said, the Mishnah says in the Vomis, eid echod, single witness, whether it's a man or woman, relative says meiz balach, testifies the woman's husband passed away. So we say she's permitted to remarry, because we treat her like a widow. Now, what happens if a woman is not an heir of her husband? She doesn't inherit, but the children do inherit. So if an eid echod testifies meiz balach, so the Gemara says she's permitted to remarry, but the Yorshim are not permitted to take over the estate. Because we say the eid echod is only believed regarding to free the woman to be able to be married. So you have this similar question. I mean, if you believe the witness that the husband's no longer alive, that means she's a widow, they're what? They're heirs. But yet, we leave it, the estate remains intact. See, there's nobody else to take over the estate. Because we treat it as if the husband is still alive regarding the monetary assets. Until two witnesses testify he passed on, they're not permitted to take it. It says, Ein Yorshim Yordun L'Chosov. The heirs do not enter into the estate until it's verified that he died. Until it's proven that the man died.
And if there is no further proof,
You can't. It stays. It's held by the court. Well, be man goes overseas, and so what do you do with the asset? The court has to protect it. The children may be managing; they'll get a fee for managing the asset. But in terms of selling the asset, exercising rights of an owner, they have no right. They're not the owners of the asset. So Rabbi Kalatsky says this is called. So there, we believe, we accept the testimony fully. She's a widow. That's called palgin and nemonus. There, we're fully accepting the testimony. We say, Ploni Ravani Luritzonig, so-and-so sodomized me. So there, we're actually splitting the testimony, because there were two testimonies. Ploni Rava, so-and-so committed sodomy, and I consented. I mean, I as a participant. So that, we don't talk about the participant. Here, if you say a man died, there are two consequences of dying. The wife is free to marry, and the assets immediately transfer to the heirs. So we're accepting the testimony that the man's not alive, but he's not alive. So here, we're only applying the fact to one aspect and not to the other aspect. That's called palgin nemonus. Okay? And that's really what we're doing over here. If we're accepting the testimony, the document as being viable regarding that he's a free man, so if he's a free man, why can't he take over the assets? No, but it's the same idea. It is a palgin nemonus. We believe, we accept the document as being viable. So if the document's viable, if it's viable for one, not viable to the other, it's the same idea. If the man died and that allows her to remarry, so that means the assets should transfer immediately. We accept it in one context, not another context. We accept the document as being viable that you're a free man, but not to allow you to take possession of the assets. Exact same idea. It's not Isurin. It's not Isurin. That's Davar Sheberva. Davar Sheberva is not Echad and Isurin.
But like we said, in the case of the one witness testifying about the man's death, that the Chazal conditionally authorize the new marriage. They say, we're going to assume that you've done whatever you need to do with heaven and earth to confirm this. And if this man shows up, firstly, the new marriage is not valid.
Well, that's understood. She's still married.
The Chazal, the Gadol Hador married her.
Correct. Marriage is not valid. The kids are
That
mamzerim.
was a nothing act.
Children. But what the chumrah is that we don't even allow it to go back to the original husband.
Right.
That is the greatest tragedy. Even though it's inadvertent. It's not adultery. In deliberate adultery. She believed that the husband wasn't alive. Under normal circumstances, she should be permitted to go back to the original husband. But over here, we penalize her because we said you didn't do your sufficient due diligence. Because otherwise, he wouldn't have come back. There was a certain element of safek, which was not verified. Therefore, you will be penalized.
So it's as long as she's married to the new husband, it's in some way a conditional marriage.
No. Again, if the Torah says you have to have two witnesses to permit a woman to marry, how do we allow her to marry? So Rashi says we annul the marriage. The Chazal have to annul it. Otherwise, we're not permitted to allow her.
But it's a conditional annulment.
It's conditional annulment. Exactly.
The new marriage is also a conditional.
Conditional.
But that's why there's no such thing as conditional ownership.
Sure there is conditional ownership. If it's later it's revealed that you didn't own it, you have to reimburse the rightful party. Why not?
So
it could, but there's no reason. We don't, because here there's a special dispensation where she should be an aguna. We don't want her to be a shackled woman for the rest of her life. But assets, so you don't take over the assets. But the question, but if you're believing the witness that the man's not alive, what that means that they're heirs. We apply it in one context, not in the other context. So it's the same thing here. If you're a free man, so if that's the case, you have the ability, and why you're free? Because the document's a viable document. So I accept the document is viable for you, but not for the assets. So again, we're accepting the documents fully. These witnesses are not. These are authentic signatures. In this, to be applied for this, but not to be applied for something else.
All right, what about the case where two witnesses testify that the husband is dead? Two.
100%.
And then the woman marries, and then the husband shows up.
She has no, which means, I mean, she has to leave the new husband. She's a married woman, it's understood.
But is she allowed to go back?
She goes back to her first husband.
In this case, she's
that
allowed
case,
to
because
go
she's
back.
not faulted.
And the children are not mamzer.
Our mamzer. What's the mamzer? She was a married woman, had children from another man. Right, so definitely they're illegitimate. Okay. So the first case is an easy case, the case of the Brisa. Of course, each one is distinct. right? Because in the document he had written, "Atzmach u'nechosai," you're free, and my asset should be yours. So, no, that he did. Evet shevi give Kosovo atzmach u'nechosai knuyim loch.
Give effect to the order of the words that are in the document.
Correct. Iboilu. What about if he had written in the document, Kol nechasai knuyim loch? All my assets are acquired by you, and he's part of the asset. Correct? Because he's concluded Kol nechasai. The slave, Evet Kanani, is a chattel. No, that's not a problem. It's never a problem. The other Yitiv Yodavon Kechot. Right? What? No, we want to know, is he actually, he's included. So do we say, but since we say over here, he's not believed in regard to the Nechosim, see, before, it's as if the witnesses are testifying on two separate two different facts. He's free, the assets are transferred. So we accept one way to accept the other. Here, you have witnesses testifying, it's a blanket statement. He's included within the statement. So since within that statement I cannot accept his verification, because Kol Nechasai includes monetary, do I somehow divide it and I look at it as if it's each is distinct, or do we say it's everything, it's all or nothing? So therefore we can't accept it, because you have to have two witnesses to substantiate the document, the signatures. That's the shayla, we'll see. So take a look at Rashi, how he explains the question. Mi amrina atzmoch unechosei trade diburi ninu. See, the first case in the Brisa, there were two statements said. Atzmoch unechosei. You and my assets are acquired by you. Avol kol nechosei kevin the b'chad diburo oselei shichar atzmo umatona umatnas techosim. Right? Here in one statement, he being freed and the assets being transferred are included with one statement. That's the next one that test. Let's say a person says, all my assets are acquired by you, and he's a canonic slave, and you substantiate the document. The halach is he's freed, and all the assets of the original master are his. Why? Because he was included in all those assets. He's part of it, and he said, and it all should be yours. So he transferred everything to him. But over here, the problem is, only part of the statement is being verified, because he's a single witness, right? He's substantiating, certifying the witnesses versus himself, but versus the assets, he's not believed. So we say, as he's not believed on the others, he's not believed on himself, because it's one statement, or somehow we're able to split the statement. Regarding himself, yes. Regarding the assets, no. That's the question. If you're going to believe on himself, you're going to believe him even regarding the assets. Or maybe we split it. 1 second. There's a Rashi we had in Sanhedrin. We're over there. It has some relevance to this. Tosfos argues. A person comes and says over there, Ploni va'alishti. There's two cases. Ploni urvani l'ritzoni. So-and-so committed a sodomy, and I participated and I consented. That's Palgin Dibura, okay? And the Gemara says, what about Ploni va'alishti? So-and-so committed adultery with my wife. So what do we say also? Do we say Ploni, so-and-so committed adultery and happened to be my wife? So Rashi learns the discussion over there. The question is, do you believe him even to convict his wife with the other witness? Why? Because since Odom Koravet Zelatzmo, Koravet Zelatzmo means, it doesn't mean he's, it's Korav over there doesn't mean it's as if I'm related. It means we see the husband and wife as one entity. So there's a discussion. So over there, the way Rashi learns that since you believe him regarding the third party, you will believe him regarding his wife, even to convict his wife. That's what Rashi learns. You understand? Once his testimony is being accepted, we accept the whole testimony. No, one side is even to convict her to put her to death. What? No, she's an adulteress. He's testifying she's an adulteress. Correct. But over there, the discussion is that since you believe him regarding the adultery, regarding the adulterer, maybe you should even believe his testimony to put her to death. Okay, I'm just saying. I'm not getting into, but over there, the concept is once you accept the testimony, you accept the whole testimony. Because regarding the adultery, there's no problem accepting that. So once you accept that, you accept the whole thing.
So would you say the same thing here?
No, so that's what I'm mentioning. Tosas rejects it totally. But it's the same thing. If you're believing the person regarding himself, and he's included in Kol Nechosai, so if he's concluded also, if you believe, so that means, so on what are the witnesses testifying? Kol Nechosai, Knuyin Loch. And if you're part of that, and you can't separate the assets from himself, and you accept it, so you accept everything. See, separate, the witnesses are testifying on A and B. So it's each one's distinct in the document. Two different testimonies. Here it's one testimony. So if you're going to believe him on one, you have to, it's either all or nothing. Right? So over here, so originally, Omer Abayi b'toch shekona asmu kona nechosim. Since it's one statement, and you believe him on kol nechosai, that statement is a viable statement regarding himself, so all the assets are transferred. Omer Rava, so Rava says to Abayi, Bishlam atzmu likmi midi have a get isha. Regarding himself, we understand because the get shichrur, it's no different than get isha, that a single witness is believed to what? To certify it. El nechosim lo niknik. But why should he acquire the assets? Midi have a kim shtoros. Why should it be different than certifying a regular document? You should have to have two. The alma. So he should not be believed regarding the what? The assets. The assets should not be transferred to him. So what does Abai do? So Abai says, if that's the Hodor, Omer Abai, he retracted. Mitoch shelo kona nechosim, lo kona atzmo. He's retracting. Because it's an all or nothing deal. Originally he said, well, if he acquires himself, he says, so if that's the case, let him not. As he's not acquiring the assets, he shouldn't acquire himself. So Abai says, you're right. Factually, since the doc, it's one statement, and we can't accept his certification regarding the assets, we can't accept it regarding himself. That's Abai, the way he concludes.
Do you have any rule that apply when you split the testimony?
Rav is going to split the testimony here. Rav is going to say, we do say Palgim Dibur here. That regarding himself, he's free. Regarding the assets, they remain frozen. That he will not get the assets.
Right, I'm not worried about the result. I'm worried about what the logical thinking is when you would split the testimony.
No, but you see, this is the exact case of Meis Bailach. If a single witness testify, she's permitted to marry, but the heirs can't take over the possessions. Right? This is literally the exact same case. We apply the testimony for one, but not for the other. We're accepting the whole test. The man is dead. Die means there are two consequences of death. The wife is free to marry, and the estate is passed on. Right? Yet, we accept it in one context, not the other. Same thing here. Kol nechosai. Right? All my assets. Except here it's a little different, because he's included in the all. So there, death has a double consequence. Here, the statement is all. So it should be all or nothing. Rabbi says, even when you make that all-encompassing statement, you're able to split it.
When the single witness shows up, it says the husband is dead. She's obligated to do some more due diligence.
Let's say she said, I did my due diligence. I did it. Are we allowed to marry based on that?
She's allowed to marry even if she doesn't, right? She's just taking a risk.
No.
Taking a risk.
They say to her, it's up to you. If the man shows, you can hear the music. You do what you want, but we're allowing it. Right now, we're annulling the marriage, conditional annulment. If he shows up, we're throwing the book at you. He doesn't show up,
So it's a conditional annulment
of the first marriage. That's what it is.
She does her due diligence. And
Well, we presume she's going to do if she's responsible, she'll do a due diligence.
Let's say she does. Why can't she at that point convincingly move the estate into her children's?
It's not her, the court, because she's a single witness. That's the reason. So, see over there, dying has a double, here it's worse than dying. Because the statement is, all my assets are yours, including yourself. So if all, we give validity to all regarding themselves, how do you separate himself and the assets? And here it's a much more difficult case to split.
That's why Abba is retracting, because he says if all is not transferred, but you are
That,
included in all,
good.
that's why it's not
Well,
transferred.
Amelie Rava said, but look what Rava says.
Can I just ask you, Rabbi, just according to what we said a few minutes ago, that the midoraisa, everything transfers to the slave. In the second state, it works, midoraisa.
Correct.
The Chazal came in and said, we're going to superimpose other conditions here. So everything transferred, and then the Chazal simply say,
We're holding it back.
we're holding back.
Correct.
We're going to use a hefker, beskin, hefker, and we're going to refuse to allow the assets to transfer over.
Correct.
Okay. So why can't Abai accept that understanding? It seems pretty straightforward.
Because the terminology in the document doesn't allow it.
No, the terminology says everything transfers.
Okay, let's see.
When the Torah says
Wait a
yes.
second. The rabbinic law says it's as if it doesn't say it. We treat it as if the document is not a viable document regarding the assets. So if we're treating it's not viable for the assets. He's part of the asset. He should be freed. Rabbinically, we should hold him back. We shouldn't allow him to conduct himself. What's conduct? We shouldn't allow him to marry a regular Jewish woman. Here we're allowing him to marry a Jewish woman.
Yes.
We shouldn't allow it.
See,
I mean, there's no change in his life other than marriage. There's no change in his life.
if midoraisa, the way that answers it, the Torah says everything transfers. The person and the
But how do we treat the assets? As if they don't. As they don't.
The Chazal
Why?
came back and said, we're not gonna
But
permit
why?
the assets
But
to
why?
transfer.
But why? Because a
Because
document to
you
be
require two.
conceded, to be considered viable, you need two witnesses.
Right.
Okay. So why, regarding himself, do we allow him to be? Why do we allow him to behave like a free man, even to marry a regular Jewish woman?
Because the Chazal had the power to say yes.
But why should they? But it's included. But the statement doesn't allow it. He said, "All my assets are yours."
Because
He's part of all. How do we split it? Rabbinically, how do we split it?
because they made an exception with respect to get, and they're patterning the
But
get
it still
to
has to fit the
Eved
but the
against
words,
the woman.
but the terminology doesn't work. You still have to deal with the statement. The man said all, and yet he's saying all means all for this and doesn't mean all for that. But then you're ignoring the words.
No, but the man was very clear. He wanted everything to transfer.
We don't know that. We don't know that.
Why?
Because if it's not viable, we don't know that. Maybe it's a forgery. Maybe the document's a forgery. We only know it's not a forgery because it's been certified.
Right, but that's
Wait a second, I understand that. But if it's certified, he's saying the witnesses that say all the assets are transferred to you, that's a fully certified document. Because he said all. What did he certify? The witnesses' testimony about the statement all. Right? That's what he's verifying. So if he's verifying that the witness said all is viable, so how do you separate it? See, if they're two separate statements, it's very good. He's certifying A but not B. It's one statement here.
Let me just when it comes to an Eved Knani, he is the chattel of his master. We've always said that.
Correct.
Okay. With an Eved Ivri, what is the relationship?
He's
That's
the
what we're talking
master.
about.
No. There's not an Eved Ivri. There's Eved Kanani.
Oh,
here.
we're talking about an
Eved Kanani.
Okay, so he is chattel. Just
Exactly. He's chattel. That's what we're
Chattel.
saying. Exactly. That's what. This is a get shichur. This is a writ of emancipation here.
okay. So I'm back to where.
Definitely. He's believed. Eved is believed to testify. He's not like a goy. He's not like a Gentile. Because he's ochicha. Eved is considered ochicha. He's your brother. He's considered your brother. He's ochicha b'mitzvahs. No, then he's an eid echad. If he comes now with another witness and who'll verify the document, that he'll be believed now.
But the other Kanani is raised. He's still not Jewish, is he?
Sure.
He's a woman before he gets released. A Jewish woman. I still don't.
Okay, what do you think about it? Okay.
I'm thinking about it.
Okay, we'll get...
Is the Eved Kanani considered as an eid echad, like a woman? But,
Correct.
But if
Correct.
it comes with another eid, it's considered like a man.
Should have two witnesses. Correct. Elo merovo. Echod zeh v'echod zeh. Echod zeh v'echod zeh. Whether he said, you are free, you should be for yourself and my assets also, or he said all encompassing. Regardless of whatever terminology he said, atz l'kona chosm l'kona. Meaning, Rav is saying, we say palgin dibura. We don't differentiate whether he himself delineated between himself and the assets, or it was all one statement. No, we say palgino. No, just the opposite. We say, even though it was coal, we're able to split the coal. That's tremendous chiddush. Because you say,
the document says Paul. You would think you would not split it.
this is similar to, we said Mez Balov. To remarry, we believe, but for the assets remain in the estate.
Here it's actually the construction of the word itself. We're going against the construction of the document, which is most judges don't go against the construction of the word.
I agree. It's a greater chiddush. This is a greater chiddush. Omali Ravada Bar Masel Rova Kiman. Who do you attribute your position to? Karib Shimon. Doma Palgin Dibura. See, again, the terminology Palgin Dibura is a different concept here. This is a much greater chiddush. Right? Ploni Ravani Luritzoni, which is the classical case of Palgin Dibura, two separate testimonies. So-and-so committed sodomy. I consented to the sodomy. The court doesn't listen to the second statement. We only hear one statement. Here you're actually taking a word which means all-inclusive, and you're actually understanding as if something else was written. We're ignoring the text of the document. Did none. HaKosiv kol nechosiv la'avdo. Person writes, transfers all his assets to his Eved Kanani, Yotze ben Chorin. Right? He's a free man. Excuse Yetze ben Chorin. He's a free man. What does Shir Karka Koshu? Lo Yetze ben Chorin. Let's say he says, all my assets are transferred to you except for one small piece of property, which is barely inconsequential. He's not. So Rashi explains what's the position of Tanakama. Because maybe when he said that, once he's leaving over something, the document's purely to flatter the slave. To ingratiate him. He should be considered valued, but really, he doesn't mean to free him. What about, he said, all my assets are yours except yourself. What does that mean? It means nothing. Because Mashkon Eved Kona Rabo. Whatever, because the slaves immediately transfer back to the owner. So when he said he leaves over a piece of property, he doesn't mean specifically property, including himself. Once there's an exception, he's not transferred fully to you, you may be part of what's not being transferred. So what is it? It's called Chanifer. He says lahachnif, only to flatter him.
So there's no sincerity on the part of in this transfer. He did not intend.
Correct.
We're saying we are reading what his intention is.
Well, we'll see. We suspect. It's not definite, but there's a very strong reason it's a suffix. We say, the fact is the owner, the presumed status, he's the owner. What did he mean? There's a very strong reason to suspect he only meant to flatter him. If that's the case, he retains full ownership. What? Because if he would say, here, he didn't say which property. Firstly, he says, even if he said which property. As he leaves out something, Rashi says, the Tanakh is of the opinion, where is it? Aval hochad noch shir amin lidena mishir. That but he said he says all my assets are yours except for that property. We say l'chnufi lekosi. He's only come purely to flatter him. V'lo shchrui kevel omale atzma. See, if he would says you and my assets should be yours, you should be yours and my assets should be yours. Even if he left over assets irrelevant, because since he delineated himself, but here he included in the assets. All my assets are yours except that. Since he included the assets, there's reason to suspect it was purely to flatter him. Otherwise, he would have been more succinct by saying you and my assets. That's the position of Tanakama. It's 25. That's